when you help people make something better, there's got to be purpose to it. If you can tie everything you're doing to that purpose, they're more likely to keep it alive.
If you've been practicing continuous improvement for any period of time, you can probably remember a time where you made something better and then you came back 3 months later and it had slidden back to the original state, or perhaps it even was a little bit worse than it was before you made it better. Obviously, these situations are less than ideal. So being able to sustain the improvements that we make, or in a perfect world, we want to keep making them just a little bit better over time so we never have to worry about any backsliding. Well, obviously, that's where we want to be with our continuous improvement journey. And that's why I'm so excited for today's show, because my guest today, Adam Lawrence, is going to talk about a model that he has created for his clients that helps them really sustain and continue to improve the processes that they're focused on. And throughout this show, Adam walks us through an 8-step model, and we're going to include a download of this model in our show notes. And I highly recommend that you download that model, study it, listen to the podcast, and then see how the model might work for you. Maybe you have to modify it a little bit to fit your business, but I think the principles Adam's going to share are really relevant to just about anyone who's practicing any form of continuous improvement. So show notes for this particular episode can be found over at gembapodcast.com. Just look for episode 287. Again, we're going to have some downloads, so be sure to visit the show notes page today, gembapodcast.com. Look for episode 287. And as always, you can check out Gemba Academy's Lean Learning Library over at gembaacademy.com with a fully functional 3-day trial. All you got to do is go to the main website, gembaacademy.com, scroll to the bottom, and you'll see a link for a 3-day trial. Hit that button, and you'll have access to thousands of videos and lots of learning resources. Okay, enough from me. Let's get to the show. Adam, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going great, Ron. Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to be part of the conversation.
Oh, yeah. My pleasure. My pleasure. Really looking forward to it. So, Adam, I know you've listened to the podcast in the past, and you know how we kind of like to get things going, and it's with a quote. So do you have one?
Yeah, sure do. So I was inspired many years ago by picking up a book from Shigeo Shingo in 1991. And, he was kind of my entranceway into lean, had been doing continuous improvement for a number of years before then. But my favorite quote is, "The most dangerous kind of waste is the waste we do not recognize." And the reason why that's so impactful to me is that you get so bound up in the way you do things every day that sometimes you have to be able to step back and say, wait a minute, why am I doing it this way? Why would I put myself in that situation? And as lean practitioners, we have that opportunity to help people see that waste that they're not recognizing on their own, and then help them problem solve their way beyond that.
That's great. That's great. All right. Well, let's go ahead and have you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Adam. Tell us about your background. Tell us how you first got introduced to all this continuous improvement stuff, and then tell us what you're up to these days.
Okay, well, great. Thanks, Ron. So I'm a graduate of Virginia Tech, graduated in the 80s with a degree in industrial engineering, had the opportunity to join a company in North Carolina, and spent my early years as an engineer just helping people solve problems and make things better. So I was doing continuous improvement probably without really knowing it. Moved to Chicago. I was a supervisor in a ceiling grid factory. And one evening, we were having some extreme difficulty setting up one of our punch presses. And I noticed on the shelf in the supervisor office, there was this book by a guy named Shigeo Shingo called A Revolution in Manufacturing, the SPED System.
Yep, I got the same one.
Yeah. And I said to the other supervisor, can I borrow this?
Yeah.
And he said, dude, you can have this book. I'm like, really? This looks like this could help us. So I started reading it, and all of a sudden, it was like the light turned on for me. There were so many fabulous ideas in the book that I could apply directly. And so all of a sudden, I was able to help the people in my factory. And just for the next, 25 years or so, I'd been applying those principles, reading voraciously, going to some conferences, getting training where I could, kind of creating my own approach. And I worked for essentially the same company in multiple locations for about 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Early last year, they gave me the opportunity to go out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might call that downsizing, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I loved the idea that I was able to help people all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could come up with a way to help more people and kind of do it the way I like to do it?
Mm-hmm.
So opened my own practice May of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Was very, very fortunate to get early customers
Mm-hmm.
who had known me in the past. And so the word of mouth has spread, and I'm just able to help people solve some pretty complicated problems. And the real work that I try to do is to engage, empower them, and then teach them how to actually sustain all the great solutions that they've created during these sessions and
Mm-hmm.
these visits.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I really put my energy.
Great. And we'll definitely link to your website. What's the name of your consulting business?
Process Improvement Partners.
Okay. Good. And it's pi-partners.com, I think, is the website, right?
That's
okay.
right.
Good. Yeah. And we'll link to that in show notes, and we'll mention it again at the end. So you just mentioned sustainability. So I think it's kind of the topic that I'm going to hone in on here a little bit today in this episode, and we'll free to explore other areas as well, Adam. But why are you so focused on this topic of sustainability? Why is it so important to you?
Well, people spend so much effort trying to solve problems. And what I noticed over the years, including my efforts, were we solve the problem and then it comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Solve the problem, then it comes back. So you put all this tremendous effort into getting people aligned around the thing they're trying to solve. They put all their energy and creativity into it. They solve it. But why is it not sustaining? So I started to really reflect and think through, what are we not doing? What's not right about our approach that isn't allowing things to sustain?
Mm-hmm.
So I started to realize some of the mistakes I had personally made and some of the things that I saw. And I started to build kind of this construct around the components and the system for sustaining. And for the last number of years, I've been using it, and I'm going to just say quite successfully with teams to help them sustain and actually take their solutions to an even better place.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, this topic is so important, because, back to your engineering days, the second law of thermodynamics is entropy, right? And entropy is always pulling, right? It's always trying to bring disorder into any type of system, whether it's your, 5S event that you just did, or your, from a science perspective, the barbecue grill, you're done cooking and it's going to cool off. That's entropy, right? The energy is going to escape, right? Whether you like it or not. So if we don't have some systems in place, or we don't have an approach in place, any gain, any type of improvement is going to backslide, and sadly, sometimes get even worse than it was before you made it better, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the model. What did you discover? And maybe I'm also curious on how you developed the model, because I'm sure you probably learned some lessons along the way. So let's dig into that a little bit.
Okay. Well, thanks. So yes, absolutely. Lessons learned and mistakes made along the way kept exposing components of the model that were missing for me. So eventually I started out, it kind of looked like a molecule, like a nucleus with circles around it. And eventually I built a thing I called the wheel of sustainability. And it originally had 6 spokes and a hub, and it now has 8 spokes and a hub. And what I realized was, not only was it helpful, but it was memorable to the team, and I could explain it, and we could then test against it in any problem-solving situation. Mm-hmm. So what I would say, and the joke I make with my teams, is that some of these spokes came in because I realized I was missing them. Mm-hmm. And once I realized it, I said, ooh, need that spoke. Oh, need that spoke. And what that really is this. So there are right now, I'm sure there could be more, 8 spokes and 1 hub on the wheel. Mm-hmm. And so I teach my teams each spoke and how we can actually turn it into something real. And then we test our work against each spoke, and at least give it a shot, give it a shot on each spoke, at least try to put it in place so that you can say, hey, I've got a chance to sustain all this good work. Mm-hmm. So if you'll allow me, I'll take you around the spokes.
Yeah. In fact, I've got the, you shared a diagram over email with me, the wheel of sustainability, and we'll include this in the show notes for folks to download, once they get done listening as a takeaway.
Okay, great. Okay, well, we'll start at 12 o'clock. We'll start with the more traditional things. So the first spoke is notification. So we've made a change. We've solved a problem. We need to tell people. We need to show them. We need them to understand that this is the new way, the better way, the thing that's going to make things safer, more productive, whatever we're working on. So notification, it gives people a chance to say, hey, okay, tell me more about that. Mm-hmm. So then the next spoke is, again, pretty traditional, but training and review. So tell, show, and do. Whatever method you use to engage people so that they can understand, try it, ask good questions, help them feel comfortable with the new approach, and kind of reinforce what it is that we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So pretty simple stuff. Mm-hmm. And we do that traditionally anyway, or we think we do. Mm-hmm. We can always do better. Mm-hmm. The third spoke at 3 o'clock is the visible evidence. So the point then is, can I see from a distance away that the new change is being done correctly? Can I understand where I need to come back and help if someone's not doing it the proper way? Because if we're not doing it well or right, it's typically more of a leadership process than a personal process. We have an issue in our process. So can I, within 10 seconds at 12 feet away, understand, are we following the standard work? Are we doing the steps in the new way? Or are we doing something in our own way? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's visible evidence. The next spoke is, have I supplied all the proper tools so that I can do this work well? So in a very simple 5S example, have I put the tools on the tool board, well positioned, well located, diagrammed well, labeled, outlined, every simple way that we can help that person doing the job know that they have exactly what they need, where they need it. They don't have to chase it down. In a virtual world, have I given them the software? Is the computer set up properly? Is it ergonomic? Have we done all those things to make it as safe and simple as possible to do the work the way it's supposed to be done? Mm-hmm. The next spoke is clear benefit. So this is the what's in it for me. Can you truly show to that person, can they derive the benefit from the new way of doing? So we know that human nature would say, we don't love change, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to tell me to do something different?
Yeah, move my cheese.
This way. Yeah, why would you do that to me? Yeah. So the point is, for my Kaizen teams, hey guys, you have been working on this in the Kaizen room for 3 days. Let's test it on somebody that wasn't in the room with us. Let's see what they think. Let's see if they believe it helps them. Because frankly, if it doesn't, they're probably not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So that's a really strong test. Let's find out, did this help this person feel like they can do the job in a safer, simpler, and more productive manner? Or is it just something different that they're going to fight against? 2 a.m, we're not there to evaluate that they're following the standard work. If it's not a benefit to them personally, they're probably not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So that's a test that sometimes my teams try to shy away from. Mm. So I'll bring them out to Gemba, as we always do, and say, come on, let's go find a couple of crew members and see what they think. Mm-hmm. So make it as safe a process as possible, because it's a great way to get buy-in from the greater organization anyway. Mm-hmm. Let's get their feedback. Let's get their input. Let's make sure we're giving them something that's going to make their lives better. Mm-hmm. Okay, the next spoke number 6 is the layered audit. So, okay, even with the best of intentions, we're not showing the leadership to our teams to say, this is the better way, this is the safer way. So let's go out in Gemba, let's go audit. Let's audit at the operator, the supervisor, and the leader level. And let's make sure that everybody understands we're here to support them to do the right thing. We also want to reinforce how important the right thing is. And we want to learn from each other as we're auditing, because maybe there's something even better out there. But we won't know if we just assume everybody's following that new procedure or the new standard work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The next one's accountability. This is more leadership accountability to me. This is not the operator mechanic accountability. This is to say, I'm walking out to Gemba. Somebody has chosen, for whatever reason, not to follow the standard work, or there's an abnormality that is happening that's forcing us off standard settings. I am accountable to go there and help. I'm there. I need to go there, show my leadership, show my support, and see if there's anything I can do to get us back to standard. What help do you need? So it's the leadership accountability versus the operator accountability.
Interesting. Okay. Got it.
My final spoke on my wheel is recognition. And I always joke with my teams, this is not prizes for anybody. This is understanding cause and effect. Because we did this, we were more productive, we were safer. It's the storytelling. I used to have a disorganized area, but we did some 5S, and now instead of taking an hour to find the equipment I need to do the job, it's immediate, and it's made my life better. So it's those sharing of stories and the re-emphasis of those stories so that everybody understands, hey, this stuff can help us. This stuff can work. So that's the recognition I'm talking about. So finally, in the center is the leadership commitment. So, I have a rule when I go help teams. If our leadership isn't committed to letting us make the change, we shouldn't do this. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to waste their time. So they need to understand when they've told a team, we're going to solve a problem and we want to keep it solved, then they have to have the commitment to support all of those spokes, all of those aspects so that the team can win every single time. So I have those strong conversations with the leadership teams before we even run the Kaizen event. And then I have this discussion with the team to show them, hey, you wouldn't be in this room, you wouldn't be out on Gemba off your normal job doing this if leadership wasn't so committed to your success.
Yeah. No, I like it. So let me run around the wheel here as a review, make sure I got it all right. So the first 12 o'clock spoke was notification, basically communicating that we've made an improvement. Training and review was the next one. Visible evidence is the next one. All tools are available, making sure everybody has what they need. 6 o'clock at the bottom of the wheel, we have clear benefits. Then we had layered audits. Then we had leadership accountability. It says accountability, but we really were focused on leadership here. And then recognition, with leadership commitment being right in the middle of all these spokes. So it's really interesting model, Adam. So I guess my first question related to this is, some of them you could see are they're related in a way, like notification and clear benefits. It's interesting. One's 12 o'clock, one's 6 o'clock, but, and it's right down to the middle of leadership commitment. I don't know if that's on purpose, but it's, these things, probably play well together, I would assume. Is that right? I mean, is there an order or, I guess talk to me about that.
Well, okay, so that's a great question. So I'd like to think I'm as clever as you might make me out to be, but I'm probably not quite that clever. So I really started out as traditional being the first ones because I thought one way to ease people into this new way of thinking, it's not really new, it's just a different way to look at it, I would suspect, is, okay, look, we know we got to talk to people, right? We made a change. You're going to do that anyway. Let's be very aware we need to do it, but let's think about how we should do it. Then training and review, of course, we're going to do that. But let's think about what's the most value-adding way to do it. So I kind of worked my way from traditional to maybe not as obvious. I'd like to think all these spokes are fairly obvious, but what I can tell you is I see people that I don't expect to take notes on anything, writing notes on these documents. Because this is one of the few things that I actually hand out. I like to work from, engaging people in the discussion during the Kaizen event, maybe a little PowerPoint. They probably would say too many PowerPoints, as everybody does.
Yeah.
Flip chart, demonstration. But this is one thing that I realize that, the way people retain information, it's good to have something to take away. And if you write notes, it means you're trying to reinforce that concept. And so I do see people keeping it, not everybody, of course. And then, again, I try to reinforce it by Now let's test our change against these 8.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're missing some, all right, let's design how we're going to do it. So I have some examples of that, of course.
Okay. Good. All right. Really good model. Interesting model. So, I guess talk a little bit about how you train and teach and engage teams around this model.
Okay, great. Well, thanks. So I get brought in to help teams solve multiple problems. I mean, I appreciate those opportunities. So one of the key principles for me is that our results, we need to win, and these results need to live on. I'm very purposeful around anything we do is done for purpose. I have a story of a weld shop that we organized using 5S, but to make our welders safer, more productive, and able to respond very well to the needs of the factory. When welders are needed, typically it means that the line is down, money is being lost, people need help quickly. And, the welders, bunch of mechanics, they aren't your typical Kaizen team members as a full team. They get a little skeptical. Let's just say they get skeptical at the beginning. So the point is, hey guys, we're going to do all this great work. We got to make it live on. We have to do everything in our power because we're going to make everybody's lives better. We don't want to have it go back the other way. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, I had a bunch of skeptical folks. So what I did was we got to the point of, all right, how are we going to make sure, their concern was everything's going to go back to the way it was. Tools are going to leave. Locks are going to be taken off. Things that we need aren't going to be where we need them. How are we going to make sure? Well, the point was, okay, so where are we missing? Well, we had all the welders, so notifying and training was fine. They got it. They developed their new system. That was fantastic. We did the visible evidence. We did the tool boards. We had footprinting. We had good signage, large visuals. Somebody like myself, who's not a welder, for sure, don't even play one on television. I could walk in that shop and immediately see that everything was as it should be. Mm-hmm. We got rid of 90% of the clutter. It was amazing, maybe more. But what was left was everything they needed in the proper condition, right where they needed, so tools were there. The benefits, they were able to identify. But then we got to the audits. And if you're like me and you've dealt with mechanics, not to put them into a silo, but okay, maybe in the traditional manufacturing, they're not really fans of the, let's call it paperwork idea. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a story of how we got them to the audit they needed. Mm-hmm. So, okay, guys, what are we going to do? How are you going to hold people accountable to do what needs to be done every day in this shop? How's leadership going to make sure it's as it should be? Don't you want something that you can document? Well, Adam, we don't want paperwork. I get it. I hear you. I understand it. But how are you going to show the accountability? We can do it on a board, but we got to do something that shows that people are doing the right thing. We want them to always do the right thing. So I had to get onto the PowerPoints. They had no interest in any of it. This was like day 3 of an event. We had already sorted and done everything else that we wanted to do, and now it was, how are we going to sustain? So I'm showing them examples of how to do that. Well, you could just tell they were having none of it. Mm-hmm. Okay, guys, we got to do something. What do you want to do? None of it. Well, no, that doesn't really work. You want this to live on, right? Right. Okay, great. So I realized I had to create a significant emotional event. Now, this is a little risky, as you might know, but they need to own their solution. So I got to a point where I'm actually showing them a checklist, and I'm reading every single line on a checklist. By the 6th line, the leader of the team, let's call him Jimmy, who was definitely, team efforts were not his thing. Fabulous welder. Tremendous. Jimmy gets up, beet red face. Adam, we're going out to the smoke shack, and we're going to figure out what we want to do. And you can't come with us, but we're going to tell you what we want to do. And I said, okay. So they stormed off. There were 6 of them. Mm-hmm. They stormed off. And I said, okay, that's what I needed to do because this other stuff wasn't working. And they were gone for about 20 minutes. And it felt like about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the room by myself, going, okay, you did the right thing. I hope they come back. 20 minutes later, they come back. They look like the cat that ate the canary. They're just really proud of themselves. And Jimmy says, Adam, all right, get on the computer. You type the checklist. We got the checklist for you. You type it the way we tell you. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, they have no idea what I'm doing. I'm loving it, but I'm going, okay, at least they came back. So they give me 11-point checklist.
Mm-hmm.
I had given them 12. They gave me 11.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in their words. Fabulous. So I typed it in. I said, those are great ideas. Okay, now that we have this, what do you want to have happen with your checklist? Okay, we need people that use the area. They have to use this checklist daily. And then what we want to do is have a weekly verification by leadership. They need to be responsible and accountable. Great, that's perfect. We want a picture of our team leader, our area owner. That was Jimmy, who was not smiling in the picture, but that's okay. And, my recommendation, it's great. Let's make it visible. So we put it right outside the area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Their checklist. Well, how about that? And they were really into the accountability. We want leadership to be accountable. Fantastic. So great. So they put this thing up, and at the report out, they start describing what they need from leadership and how critical it is for leadership to support this, and how don't let us miss a day on our checklist, and you guys have to do this weekly. And leadership is just eating it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's fabulous. And I don't know, some folks don't like to do report outs. They don't like to present in front of groups.
Mm-hmm.
I always let my group practice, and mechanics typically don't like to do it. These guys were talking from the heart. It was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
One of them actually said, I've worked in this factory 9 years. I've never done anything as impactful as what we did this week. He actually said that in front of a bunch of people. He probably got ribbed later for actually talking from the heart. But the upshot from all this is about 4 months later, for some reason, I was brought back in to help another group of mechanics in a different area organize their area. So I took them out to Gemma, and I took them to the weld shop. And it just turns out, as we came in, because I just want to show them some examples of what it could be, Jimmy happened to be welding as we walked in. Can't make this stuff up. And so he stops, and I'm just giving a little demonstration of the tool board to, let's say, 7 or 8 people, because this is the first time they've ever seen it.
Mm-hmm.
It was very new in this factory. And Jimmy, right in the middle of my little spiel, says, all right, I got to stop you right here. He goes, I know this stuff sounds silly, and I know this stuff sounds stupid, but this stuff works. Oh, by the way, he didn't use the word stuff, but we're just going to do that for your all.
Okay.
So that was the moment that I knew, and that was the reaction and impact that I want to create for the teams every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Because once they own it and they get this model to sustain it, things just get better.
Yeah.
Because you are fighting the entropy. It's exactly what you said, Ron. I mean, it is that law of entropy. Things will, and in the past, that's what was happening. And I was realizing that some of these spokes, I wasn't helping teams implement each of those spokes. Mm-hmm. Now, there may be more, and maybe some of them are duplicates. I don't know. But all I know is, as Jimmy would say, this stuff works.
Yeah.
So why mess with it?
Yeah. So, the story you told of Jimmy and the team, obviously there's you got these tough and rough mechanic guys, who don't like to, share their feelings or anything like that. But getting up and making comments like that gentleman did, in 9 years, and never done anything like this. I mean, done correctly, continuous improvement can be deeply, deeply personal and deeply emotional. That's been in my experience, and really as part of the, it's not one of the spokes, but it's kind of an underlying spoke, if you will, is like, we make an emotional connection between, the success of the event is the success of people and all of us. It's like humanity, right? That's why this respect for people is so hard to put our finger on. Like, what does that really mean? But it's what you just did, right, with those folks and helping them come up with their own solutions and owning it. And then, the person who's got their arms crossed at the beginning of the event, those are my favorite, because if you do your job right, they'll be your biggest cheerleader, like Jimmy was when he went back in there 4 months later.
Right. Well, I said, I tell people all the time, how can you not love helping people in this way?
Yeah.
where you can create. Now, you don't always get that kind of connection, but when you do, wow. I mean, it just makes the days and weeks following that just, I mean, I still think of those moments and I still get goosebumps.
Yeah. Yeah. So I assume when you went back in 4 months later, Jimmy and the team were still following the checklist, maybe even improved it. Is that right?
Oh, Ron, one thing I do is I check to see, hey, I wonder if they filled out last week and the week before and they're still there.
Yeah.
And the space actually to this day is better than we left it. Because they learned and they exposed more things and they go, ooh, I want more of that over here.
Yeah.
Or this would make the work even better. And if we footprint this over here, we'll never lose it. It'll always be where I need it. Yeah. So that is something that I look for and treasure, because then you go, you really made a difference for these people. And that's all you're doing, is you're just helping people.
Yeah. So maybe let's wrap it all up into a bow. Short of people bringing you in, which everybody call up Adam and make him too busy, and so he has to say no to people's business. But that would be great, as far as teaching your model. But if there was like just one or two, maybe three practical tips that you want to leave our listeners with, as far as how they can maybe make their gain sustain, what would they be? I mean, short of the 8 spokes. Just summarize some tactical, practical things they could do.
Well, I think the big thing for me is when you help people make something better, there's got to be purpose to it. If you can tie everything you're doing to that purpose, they're more likely to keep it alive. Okay? So people don't reject the 8 spokes. 8 sounds like a lot, and I totally get it. But the reality is, if you can tie it in, those welders, they weren't going to do a 5S to do a 5S. What they were going to do was be safer and more responsive to the needs of their facility. And they weren't going to be frustrated. So when I was teaching them about the spokes, it was all about tying that to ensuring that they would never be frustrated again. So I think that's the first tip. Be very purposeful around whatever help you're giving to create continuous improvement. So I shy away from calling something a 5S Kaizen or a SMED or this or that. People love to say, I'd like to do a SMED over here. I get it. But what's the problem we're really trying to solve? Let's be very purposeful and intentional about that, and then we'll apply the right tools to help us get there. Yeah. So I like to let's be modifying to help the team win. And you have to be able to zig and zag, because sometimes they have different needs than you suspect in the beginning anyway.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest tip here. I said, don't forget how big a commitment it is from leadership. To this day, over a year later, somebody from the leadership team, Gemba's over to that weld shop, and most of these guys never did anyway, and they're doing the audit, and they're engaging with the people, and they're helping. So never discount how important that hub of leadership commitment is. Don't commit to the Kaizen if you aren't committed to all that's going to happen the moment the Kaizen's over.
Yeah. Fantastic. Oh, that's really fun. Excellent model, Adam. Thank you for sharing that. Again, we're going to put, we'll link up that PowerPoint slide showing the diagram in the show notes. So this will be episode 287. So all you got to do, folks, is go to gembapodcast.com, look for episode 287 with Adam Lawrence, and we'll have a link to that download there. Adam, thank you so much for coming on and taking time out of your day to visit with us. We already mentioned your website once, pi-partners.com. Is there any other ways that folks can connect with you? LinkedIn? Does your son got you on Snapchat or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm not quite that advanced. Yes, so I do have a LinkedIn page.
Okay.
So just look me up at Adam Lawrence.
Okay.
It has all my contact details. I also do have a company LinkedIn page, but I would say, just have a conversation with me. Love to talk to folks. There's always something to learn. Love to share stories, as you can tell, and just anybody at all that's interested. I always have time to talk to other interested people.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks again, Adam. Keep up the great work. And hopefully we can connect face-to-face someday.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Gemba Academy podcast. Now, we invite you to take a no-strings-attached, fully functional test drive of GembaAcademy.com. Gain immediate access to more than 1,000 Lean and Six Sigma learning resources, all free of charge, at GembaAcademy.com. untitled.com.